Welcome back to The Explainer. Today we're doing a total vibe check on Lauren Palphreyman's massive hit werewolf series, breaking down the romanticy tension and all that intricate lore, starting with the Wolf King and moving right into the Night Prince. Now, if you've been anywhere near the bookish community lately, you've definitely seen the discourse. Readers seem to either fiercely love these books or sharply critique them. So we're going to figure out exactly why by unpacking the story, the characters, and the whole audio experience together. Real quick, before we get into the literal pack drama, I have to let you know that the full audiobook is available right now through the link in the description. As you'll see in a minute, the audio experience is an absolute game changer for this series, so you won't want to miss that. Okay, let's get into it. Our source for today takes a refreshingly vibes-first approach to the story. We're talking prioritizing fun, escapism over, reading a heavy technical textbook of world building. Interestingly enough, this series is noted for featuring werewolves without the nodding. And yes, that is a playful, phonetic nod to a very specific, explicit mating trope that usually dominates shifter romances. So if you're looking for a really accessible, slightly less intense entry point into werewolf romantasy, this is actually a fantastic place to start.
All right, part 1. Book 1, The Wolf King.
The plot hits the gas immediately. We meet our heroine, Princess Aurora, literally on the eve of her arranged wedding to this incredibly slimy guy named Sebastian. She's super relatable, just a young woman who feels totally trapped by her royal life. But spoiler alert, she never actually makes it to the altar. After she wildly rebels to stop a brutal dogfight, she ends up being kidnapped by werewolf alphas who think she's the ultimate key to fixing the brewing war between humans and wolves. Boom. The character arcs and the main conflict are instantly in motion.
It's actually wild how different the character work is here. The human characters down in the Southlands are basically one-dimensional, full-time haters. But the werewolves up in the Northlands, they are incredibly dynamic. They're complex, they have distinct personalities, and it just makes you infinitely more invested in the werewolf faction than the human society Aurora left behind.
Okay, let's talk tropes, because it's a real balancing act. You get this fantastic mix of political unrest, a great enemies-to-lovers dynamic, and all that forbidden attraction we love. But fair warning, if you absolutely hate the virgin trope, where a highly experienced male lead is paired with a totally inexperienced heroine, brace yourself. It makes a very strong, sometimes cringe-inducing appearance here. It's a completely fair critique if you prefer your romantic leads on more equal footing.
Look, we're in romantasy territory, so the Akotar comparisons are inevitable. Word on the street was that the male leads, Callum and Blake, are just direct parallels to Tamlin and Rhysand. Well, our source emphatically shuts that rumor down, literally asking, why are y'all doing Callum dirty like that? The main takeaway? Let these characters stand on their own merits, and do not go in expecting an exact Sarah J. Maas clone. Now, for my Spice readers who are wondering about the heat level, this first installment is relatively tame. We're sitting at a mild 2 chili peppers on the spice scale. It's definitely enough to build some great tension between Aurora and her captor-turned-protector, but it leaves plenty of room for things to escalate in Book 2.
Which brings us to part 2, Book 2, The Night Prince.
Things get incredibly messy in the sequel. Right at the end of Book 1, circumstances force Blake and Aurora's lives to become magically linked. This means a furious Callum has to form a really tense alliance with Blake. And while all this interpersonal drama is happening, the lore gets way deeper. Darker, world-ending forces start rising in the background. The acolytes of the god of nights return. And it's a threat so severe that these feuding humans and wolves might actually have to join forces just to survive. And here's where the central love triangle gets super interesting. Callum is 100% justified in being angry over this whole Blake and Aurora situation. But as the story moves forward, the dynamic shifts. Callum and Aurora's back and forth starts feeling just a little bit exhausting, and suddenly Blake completely steps into the spotlight. The story unapologetically shifts its entire obsession to him, and he becomes a vastly more compelling focus. Guys, this is literally the game changer of Book 2. Blake gets his very own perspective and, more importantly, his very own narrator. And that narrator just so happens to be the beloved voice actor who voices Rhysand in the Akotar audiobooks. It's a massive, massive draw for romantasy fans, and it makes Blake's chapters absolutely captivating. It's not totally flawless, though. While the romantic tension is delicious and the rapid plot twists are a major step up, the story gets a little crushed under its own ambition. The lore turns into what's perfectly described as an overpacked suitcase. There's just way too much mythology stuffed in there. Plus, there's a really heavy reliance on repetitive dream sequences to build up Blake's backstory, which honestly starts to feel more like a narrative crutch than a fun storytelling device.
On the bright side, the heat definitely turns up a notch. As Aurora gains a bit more freedom up in the Northlands and really starts figuring out who she is and what she actually wants, the romantic encounters get more intense. This pushes the sequel to a solid 3 out of 5 chili peppers on the spice meter.
All right, part 3, the final verdict. Should you actually read it? Let's break it down side by side. Book 1 gets a very respectable 4 stars. It has great pacing, even if Aurora occasionally tests your patience. But Book 2 edges it out with a 4.25-star rating, mostly driven by an absolutely wild ending and that highly enjoyable obsession with Blake's character arc. And yeah, if you're wondering about that oddly specific 4.25 rating, it is openly admitted that this score is inflated by exactly a quarter of a star purely because Blake got his own top-tier narrator. It just goes to show how much a fantastic audio performance can completely elevate a story. Bottom line, if you are a reader who loves picking up books just for the paranormal vibes, this is highly recommended. It's top-notch escapism with great werewolf dynamics. But here's the reality check. If you struggled to get through Book 1, do not push yourself into Book 2. Everything from the first book is just amplified in the sequel. If you do want to dive in, it's super accessible right now. You can grab it on Kindle Unlimited or borrow the audiobooks through Libby. Now for the absolute worst part, the agonizing wait for a resolution. Book 3 doesn't even have an official title yet, and it is not expected to drop until sometime in 2026. That is a brutal, soul-crushing cliffhanger wait if you end up completely invested in what happens to Blake, Aurora, and Callum. Once again, if you want to experience that magical quarter-star vocal performance for yourself, make sure to grab the full audiobook through the link in the description below. We've explored the pack politics, the polarizing tropes, and the undeniable power of a phenomenal narrator. So the only question left for you is, are you ready to risk an obsession with Blake, knowing you'll be stuck waiting in cliffhanger purgatory until 2026? Or are you staying out of the woods entirely?